Hello my movie peeps, Avatar 2 The Way of Water has finally released in theaters to the public, and I did not think I would be wanting to make a spoiler video on Avatar The Way of Water. In fact, I didn't even think I was going to be enjoying the movie all that much since I wasn't even a big fan of the first film, but count me very excited now for whatever James Cameron has planned for his next 5 Avatar movies. And ever since I sat through Avatar 2 The Way of Water, I have just been thinking nonstop, man, there are so many possibilities about where a lot of these characters could end up, story arcs that they're building towards, big battles that are coming in the future. I want to go ahead and speculate all of that, but I also want to know your opinion. You're going to be hearing a lot of theories and thoughts about where I think they're going to be taking the next couple Avatar movies, but I want to know where you think they're going to be going, where certain characters are headed, if you even like some of the bigger decisions James Cameron made for Avatar 2 The Way of Water. Any people like me who were just not that big of fans of the first film and the second film kind of turned things around, would love to hear it all down below. But first I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that's Cinemark Theaters. You guys know around here Cinemark has always been my preferred theater ever since I was a child, and now Cinemark has introduced a new way to experience movies with Cinemark Screen X. I got the chance to go to my local Cinemark and preview this experience out, where you not only get to see a movie on one screen but 3 screens, completely immersing yourself in the experience and getting more for what you paid for. I really think it's a new and unique way to check out movies in theaters. You can see movies like Shazam! Fear of the Gods, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, or even Avatar 2 The Way of Water this same way. Right now, Cinemark Screen X is located in these current cities, with more being added in the future. I think it's always exciting to try something new in the theaters, so consider this the next time you go out to your local Cinemark. Thank you again to Cinemark for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so yes, overall, like I said, I was not expecting to really come out loving the movie that much, just because I never found myself fully invested in the first Avatar film. I appreciated its visual spectacle, but the story to me didn't really grasp my attention, and there weren't really memorable characters in there. This time around, boy, was there a lot for me to chew on. I'm not gonna say like the story for Avatar 2 The Way of Water was like the most phenomenal, groundbreaking, complex story. At the end of the day, James Cameron still puts in pretty simple stories in these Avatar films. Like, it really wasn't that complex, yet I found myself really invested with all the different character arcs and things they were building up here. But alright, starting off with the beginning of Avatar 2 The Way of Water, working our way through it until I just start theorizing like crazy. It's been like 15 years or so since the last Avatar film, and the main thing they've been doing in that time as well, the dance with no pants. Or I should say, Lincoln hair pieces without scrunchies. You know what I'm saying? They're getting bit frisky up in there. Literally everybody and their mother had some sort of child since the last time we've seen them. Sully and his family have had 3 kids of their own, 2 boys, 1 girl. Sigourney Weaver's character has a daughter, but not even from her own body, her avatar body after she passed away. And even the Colonel Ketris apparently also had a kid, Miles, that he conceived before his human half died in battle in the first movie. I thought that was honestly the most ridiculous part in the first like 10 to 15 minutes. I was like, really? This is what you're doing, James Cameron? The generic 80s generational approach. I can see where these story arcs are going to be headed in the future, but as the movie progressed, I found myself actually enjoying the kids. Even though some of their fates and futures and other sequels I think are pretty predictable, I kind of want to see those arcs unfold. We'll get to what I think they'll do in the next couple Avatar movies with them in a sec, but we also see that Jake Sully has become the leader of the Jungle Navi clan, while Stephen Lang's character has returned in an Avatar body. It's revealed in the movie that before his human side died, he downloaded his entire mind and brain into his Avatar self. So he's not exactly like Jake Sully that was able to transfer his entire mind and soul into his avatar body. Instead, the general is more like a clone of his former self, almost the same way White Vision has all the memories of our old Vision, but isn't exactly the Vision. And again, I feel like they played that up really nice and added some new lore into the world they can explore. Because as the movie continues on, one of the things I saw coming a mile away, once he interacted with his human son, Miles, aka Spider, he begins getting soft and growing an attachment for him as if it was his actual son, and vice versa with Spider. He grew an attachment to this man and saw him almost like a father figure, enough to where he saved him by the end of the movie. James Cameron has already confirmed that this character Ketris is the main villain for all 5 movies. That is, if he gets to Avatar 5, because he's already come out and said if Avatar 2 underperforms or doesn't make boatloads of cash, he will end the franchise on the third film. So we're getting that third movie guaranteed, but yo, some of the things he's saying about that fifth Avatar movie, we need to get to 5. But yeah, with Stephen Lang's character, I just see so many different angles. There's the obvious one where he could end up turning into a good guy and then working side by side along Jake Sully. But since James Cameron has confirmed that he'll be the villain for all 5 movies, what if they just clone his mind again into another Avatar body, and this time we could have 2 different Stephen Langs on opposite sides of the war going after each other. And I guess touching off that point, let's talk about Miles Spider-Man, because this boy is essentially the Meg Griffin of the Avatar universe. I found it so funny. This kid got kidnapped, taken away. Jake Sully and his family did not even attempt to make a plan to go rescue him. They could have been torturing them for all you know, and in fact, they were torturing him. And they barely made an effort at all to save him. Even towards the ending battle, so many times his body could have been dead and gone, and they barely even attempted to pay him any mind or attention. Like even in that one part of the movie when they all got together and it's like, Sully family, stay together, be strong. Miles was off somewhere else and then just swims in. Even though that's pretty funny, that's going to come into play later on in the movie. Miles, I think we could actually see turning bad by a couple of these sequels. He has a good heart and he's a good kid, and it's nice that he sees himself more Navi than human, but at the end of the day, he is still human, and now that the Sully family are permanently living with the water indigenous tribe, he's going to be more useless than ever. It was one thing for him to act like a jungle Navi, climbing trees, doing everything above ground. Now trying to do some of that same stuff in water is going to be much more difficult, and they mentioned in this movie, if you are useless in the tribe, you get called out, you get frowned upon. I think Miles is eventually going to be that character that just feels so outcasted, gets so bullied, eventually grows a hate for the Navi for the way they shun him out. We might see him go running back to his dad. And since his dad seems to have access to avatar-like bodies, he could maybe entice his son with giving him his own avatar body eventually. I really think that's a future for him, is the Colonel eventually makes an avatar body for his son and says, hey, you want to be one of them? I can give that to you. You just gotta do a couple of things for me. And I guess even jumping off Miles, we gotta talk about the one love interest he has that is out of the ordinary, Kiri, who is voiced by Sigourney Weaver. Even though the character is essentially like 14 years old, a teenager, that was also really funny to me, is hearing this older woman's voice coming out of what's supposed to be a child. But also really fascinating character choices James Cameron took with Kiri, because let's just all be honest, she doesn't have a father, right? That's the whole mystery in the movie that they keep playing up, is who got her avatar body pregnant? Was it one of the scientists or students? I feel like it's pretty obvious she doesn't have a father, and whenever Sigourney Weaver and her avatar body were connected to Airway, the central lifeline of Pandora, it impregnated her with this child who is gifted with abilities to be able to control the wildlife, unlike very many of the Navi. And for that reason alone, she's going to be one of the most fascinating characters to grow throughout these sequels, is just seeing her powers expand, what more she can do. She's essentially the poison ivy of the Navi, controlling so many things, and she's only going to get more powerful as the movies continue. I think she's going to be a super vital person in this war between human and the Navi, because that's another thing we learned in this movie. Humans aren't really here anymore for our resources. Earth is apparently dying, and they want Pandora for themselves. They throw in this subplot that the whales of Pandora, the Tolkien, contain this liquid fluid that if humans consume it, it stops their aging, essentially letting them live forever. That becomes a high commodity, and who knows what other type of resources they're going to find in the other sequels. So really, the battle we saw in this movie is really small scale to the battle we're eventually going to get in the next film. And I mean, the movie ends with Jake Sully looking at the camera and saying, I have to fight. So he's going to gather up as many tribes that are willing to fight. This is where I'll bring up the thing James Cameron mentioned, that by the 5th movie, he says we will be going to Earth at least for a little bit.
I will say that in one of the upcoming films, not immediately next, not 3, actually by 5, you will see action on Earth.
Wow.
And that's where I'm going to leave it for right now.
Wow.
Because don't we want to juxtapose this verdant, incredible world in its prime with an Earth a couple hundred years from now that is the result of us if we don't change.
And then a producer for the Avatar movies clarified that a little further by saying, well, it's funny, I wasn't going to talk about it, but I've now subsequently heard that Jim has talked about it a little bit. In Avatar 5, there is a section of the story where we go to Earth, and we go to it to open people's eyes, open Neytiri's eyes to what exists on Earth. Earth is not just represented by the RDA, the evil franchise in the movie. Just like you're defined by the choices you make in life, not all humans are bad, not all Navi are good, and that's the case here on Earth, and we want to expose Neytiri to that. And even that statement alone gets my mind racing to all these possibilities, because I kind of want to see what future Earth looks like. I know we've gotten glimpses in deleted scenes from the first Avatar movie, but the fact that 5 deals with Jake Sully feeling like he has to show his wife and children what Earth is like to prove to them not all sky people are bad lets me know that Earth dying is something we could possibly see, and maybe they have the way to save Earth. I've always thought about if there's this sort of life force on Pandora that's almost like a tree. I've thought to myself, is there like a seed of that they can find and plant that on Earth that would help it out? You know what I mean? Or is that kind of crazy? But that's not even where I get crazy. I'm like, if they can reproduce and create Navi bodies, what's stopping them from recreating human bodies? If Jake Sully really wants to show his family what Earth is like and what people are like, you can't just be getting into a spaceship all blued up and then landing on Earth and thinking everyone's gonna treat you nicely. That to them would be a big alien threat. Jake Sully might think, all right, let's pop into some human bodies and then let's go to Earth and you can live amongst us and see we're not all so bad. That's something I could see happening in the Avatar world. Another thing from this statement here, they mention not all Navi are good. And that's one of the big things James Cameron's gonna want to do with all these sequels is show us all the different tribes and people that live on Pandora. And Pandora is freaking huge, man. I think in either 3 or 4, we're gonna meet a Navi group that is actually really bad. One of the key things that kept popping up in Avatar 2: The Way of Water is how Jake Sully's kids are considered mutants or demons because they're hybrid kids. They have the DNA of human and Navi, and if just one of the Sully kids mates with the indigenous water tribe, now you have 3 different species in one. I bet you there is probably a tribe or race out there that sees that an abomination, similar to how we have people here on Earth that think there's one superior race, you need to keep the bloodline pure, will consider those hybrids an abomination and anyone who supports them, and then go to war with Navi, maybe even partner up with Earth people to get rid of them. And all this crazy theorizing is why I'm saying I finally get the Avatar world. I see the potential. I'm having fun speculating around about what could happen in this world. But okay, continuing on, because there's other characters here I haven't talked about, let's talk about the 2 Jake Sully kids. So we have the eldest son and a younger son on the Sully side. I think a lot of people saw it coming that the eldest son would have died by the end of the movie. I saw it after an hour in because I'm like, gee, all these other kids are getting character growth, future development, love interest, little story details, and the oldest brother is just a Boy Scout that pops in when he needs to be good. Wonder what's gonna happen to him by the end of the movie. And even though I saw that coming a mile away, the way James Cameron played it out, it still tugged at my heartstrings. I was crying whenever Jake Sully entered their version of the ancestral plane and got to interact with his younger son. Like, that was pretty heartbreaking, but it also was kind of hard to sympathize with that middle child. Loak has a lot of growing up to do, and throughout this movie, he was making so many choices that were making me mad. So many people that could have lived or been unharmed if he wasn't just constantly rebellious. So I'm really hoping by the next movie he's matured a little bit and his brother's death will really impact him to grow up. But aside from that, I was really loving his relationship with the token whale. I thought that was something really beautifully handled in this movie, especially the scenes where the human people were going out and killing whales. That was some heartbreaking stuff. But right now they're basically setting him up to be the next Jake Sully, the one that's the leader that grows up, goes through this big character arc, and I'm kind of excited to see how that goes. I even want to talk about Neytiri here because she had one of the most powerful scenes throughout the whole movie once her son dies and she turns into this feral animal on all these soldiers, killing them and screaming in their faces. That was pretty wild to see. I was even kind of shocked the way she grabbed Miles and threatened to end his life so that the general would let go of her kid. I'm telling you, that's gonna come into play. That tension that Miles feels with Neytiri is eventually gonna explode, causing him to turn to the other side or be kicked out of the Navi clan. I think that'll also play into why Jake Sully finally feels the need to take Neytiri to Earth and show her not every human being is bad. You need to give some human people a chance and not treat them like crap. I can't wait to see what this Avatar world takes us. Right now, I'm invested. I'm curious. I really want to know from you guys. There's probably so much more theorizing and wondering to where things could lead, and I'd love to hear your predictions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.